Welcome to another episode of Sports and Discourse with your host, Derek Stevenson. And guys, I'm back with some more Bryce Hopkins news because I'm sure you probably already seen it, but he had talked to a news outlet up in his area. I forgot which news outlet it is, but he basically said that he kind of regrets that he ever went to Kentucky, and he explained his reasons why. And the number one reason was he just felt like he didn't really get an opportunity to do what he felt like he was capable of doing. He said some things that I kind of actually, I kind of understand what he's saying. He said that he felt like when he was on the court, he was very robotic, like he was just trying to do some very specific things that Calipari told him to do. And honestly, when I watch a lot of the players, I feel like a lot of the guys play like that. Like a lot of the times, I think Chris Livingston may be going through the same thing right now, where he just seems to look really robotic out there. Seem like he's not really playing with too much instincts. It seemed like that when he's out there, you can tell that he's very focused on doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing in order to not upset Coach Cal. It looks like he's just running to different spots to just set screens, and it never really looks like he's in attack mode. So I think a lot of players end up getting confused, trying to learn the systems and trying to play within the restraints that the coaching and the rest of the staff has put on them. And I think sometimes it just kind of takes away from certain players. There's certain guys that just know how to hoop, and obviously we seeing Bryce Hopkins is one of those guys that he can just hoop. But he had to be like turned loose, if you will. He said that his coach basically lets him play through his mistakes and learn on the fly. He feels confident because he said that he doesn't have to look over his shoulder because at Kentucky when there's two or three other All-Americans in your class. There might be two other All-Americans at your position. So when you make mistakes, it's always somebody there that can easily replace you. So I can understand the feeling of when you get out there on the court, you more so trying not to make a mistake than you are actually trying to win or play winning basketball. You so focused on trying not to upset the coach so that he doesn't take your minutes away that you actually end up becoming pretty much useless while you're out there, because all you're doing is playing safe basketball. You playing like a robot. You playing predictable. You're not really getting anything done. And usually you end up losing your minutes anyways. And I don't know if you guys remember, but a little while back, Wenyen Gabriel had kind of made some statements that was kind of similar to what Bryce is saying right about now. It was basically the same thing. He kind of was saying, Calipari basically just told me I was like, he was a spot up shooter, a rebounder when he first got to Kentucky, or maybe he wouldn't even allow him to shoot at that point. But he basically told Gabriel that you cannot take nobody off the dribble. That's not going to be the game that you play. And if you remember Gabriel when he was in high school, he was looking like who could I compare him to? I don't want to say like a poor man's Kevin Durant, but sort of, if you will, because he was kind of that like tall, slim build wing player that looked like he could shoot a little bit, looked like he could handle the ball a little bit. So not to compare him to Kevin Durant, but he sort of kind of had a similar style game, if you will. I thought he was going to be way more dynamic when he got here, and he really was kind of disappointing his first year. And then his second year, maybe that's when Calipari allowed him to shoot jump shots, and he was actually a decent three-point shooter. And then he decided to go on and try to go to the NBA. And then he later on made some of these same statements where he basically was saying Calipari's system basically didn't do anything to help his career. And it's in a nutshell, that's kind of what Bryce Hopkins is saying right here. He's basically was saying that he should, he was looking at the Providence Friars. I think he ended up first committing to Louisville, but he said that he wished he would have just went to Providence right off the bat. And I can understand what he's saying because he said that he was kind of getting hyped up when he got on campus. Calipari was acting like he was really going to use him and utilize his skill set. And then he had a back injury. And then he said basically he felt like once he had his back injury, some other guys had stepped up and basically taking his spot, if you will, and he never really got an opportunity after that. Like, we all know that he had his one outstanding game at Kentucky against LSU, but I guess he had already made up his mind at that point that he was not coming back. And he just pretty much said that he just needed to be somewhere where he could play free. Obviously, he said that, you know, he can't do whatever he wants. He still has to play within the system, but he has the green light. He has the authority from his coaches to make plays, to shoot threes, to drive to the basket. He's allowed to be a ball player. He's allowed to utilize his skills, and he's just flourishing in that system underneath that coach. And that's kind of one of the scary things about coming to Kentucky. One of the great things about coming to Kentucky is if you come with a loaded class, you're not going to have not nearly as much pressure on you. You can kind of learn to do things together. You can grow as a team. You can become a solid group of guys. You still can get to the NBA if you got the skills, because a lot of players that haven't been able to really showcase 100% of their game at Kentucky have still gone on to be drafted and have successful careers. Obviously, you can look at guys like Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns, who was sort of underutilized at Kentucky, if you will, especially Towns. Towns was not able to utilize his jump shooting ability, and obviously he's one of the best jump shooting big man of his era, and probably you could eventually say he's one of the best jump shooting big man of all time by the time he's done with his career. He's an excellent outside shooter, but he was never allowed to do that at Kentucky. So honestly, when you watch a lot of Kentucky's games, it does feel like there's maybe one or two guys that kind of have some leeway to make some stuff happen, to try to make some plays. And then it seemed like the rest of the guys always kind of seem to be a little robotic for my taste. And those are the exact words that Bryce used. And I think it just really, to a T, describes what you see from a lot of Kentucky athletes. And hopefully this is something that can be fixed in the future, because I feel like it actually hurts the team. Now, do I think that they need to learn certain things? They need to work on their weaknesses. They need to be able to do things that will help the team. Yes. But at the same time, you do have to allow some of them guys to learn and play through some of their mistakes. You can't just always pull a kid out as soon as he makes a mistake because you mad at him, or because he wasn't able to do exactly what you said on that particular play. You do have to learn how to keep kids confident, keep kids motivated, and keep kids engaged in what's happening. So I think maybe they could stand to do a little bit better job than that, because you would hate to see this start to become a continuing pattern. And the thing about it is, now with this transfer portal, I don't think you're going to be afforded the ability to keep making these type of mistakes with some of these kids, because the more kids we see lead a program and end up being highly successful, like Bryce Hopkins is being, he could potentially end up being the Big East Player of the Year. It's going to upset the fans a lot to see kids leaving and then actually realizing their full potential. Over the last several years, we've seen Johnny Juzang leave and become a lot better, even though he didn't end up getting drafted, but he still had a great run after he left Kentucky. We saw Charles Matthew do the same thing. We've seen a couple of guys leave Kentucky and actually lead their team to the Final Four. So I do think that there is something to be said about Bryce Hopkins' comments. I still like I still like the way Calipari is able to teach the guys to play together and create a lot of these professional athletes that seem to be a little bit ahead of the curve when they get to the NBA. But at the same time, there has been several cases like Bryce Hopkins where we have lost a player because he just wasn't able to figure out how to play in Calipari's system. And it does suck as a fan when you see a guy say, I was just forced to be a robot at Kentucky. And then you see what he really can bring to the table when he's turned loose by a coach that has confidence in him, that needs him on the court. And you can even say the same thing with Keon Brooks right now. I really thought Keon Brooks was a okay, solid player at Kentucky, but I was looking at him like he never really lived up to his potential either. And now I'm seeing a couple games of him at Washington where he's dropped 30 points, 20 points. He just looks more like he's playing more free, like he's more playing with a lot more confidence. He looks like the type of ball player that you thought he could be coming out of high school, and the type of ball player that would be really helpful to be on Kentucky right now. So you guys let me know what you think about these comments, and if you if you kind of agree with the idea that maybe Calipari does kind of hold some of these kids back, or maybe you just think that it's up to the kids to figure out how to flourish in the offense that they signed up to be a part of. You let me know, and we'll get back at it next time. Sports and Discourse with Derek Stevenson.